Hello YouTube, Ronin Kaze. Now what? So, recently I restarted Guild Wars 2. Quick sidebar. Can't climb mountains as good as in Ashes of Creation. I would say that's one of the best mountain climbing games out there. If you just want to climb mountains, that's a game to go for. Guild Wars 2 has a nice thing where they have these points where it gives you an overview of the region you're in, and then it gives you a cinematic view of that. So I think that's a pretty nice thing of that game. But Guild Wars 2, as of this recording, I'm level 80 and I'm starting on the level 80 quest. No more levels to get. You just earn mastery points, which you can spend into different kind of things. And now I have 5 character slots, so I made 2. So this account, I had 1 character up at level 69. I started playing this account, this character, I only have 2 slots, so those were filled up. When I spent that money I told you about the other day, sorry YouTube, I'm so weak, it gave me 3 more slots. So I made 2 slots for mules. In MMORPGs, you would make additional characters that you would just, they'd be like a bank for you. You could move stuff into their inventory. If you could like, subscribe, share, unsubscribe, resubscribe, maybe buy me a cup of coffee if that's even working. I think 1 person has done it. Thank you. But anyways, so you have mules and you'll have crafting mules and you might have inventory mules and these other kind of things. This is part of the MMORPG kind of universe. Now, back in the day, they made it really difficult to switch. You would, back in the day, you would have to get a friend. You would transfer your sweet ass loot or your gold or whatever to that person. And then you'd log out, log it back in with the other character and they transfer it to you. But that was always anxiety filled, YouTube. Some games let you mail it to you. And then other games let you have shared stashes. And that's really the way to go. We're playing a pretend game. It's not a real, you don't have to mimic everything like life is. A little bit more about games and then on to now what. When games first came out, they tried to be really real, or it's a simulation. Like the last thing you want to do is have real life stuff. Like, one of the first most popular games wasn't EverQuest. It was the other one. It was little characters. Anyways, you had to do things a million times to get the proficiency. Star Wars Galaxy was like that. There was a lot of grinding. It's like work. It's not like a game. So the balance for developers making games is I got to make the leveling fast enough that keeps people in the game. And then when they get to the end game, they got to have more stuff to do. And I can't make it so hard that they just quit. That's what I've done with Ashes of Creation. I like that game a lot. I'll never see... I don't really care right now. It's in beta. So, like, the level cap's 25. But I'm at made it level 15. And I said, I'm not playing this game. And I might not ever... If that's how the leveling's going to be in the game, I'll just never play it. Because the leveling's too hard. Guild Wars 2 gets it right. And then you keep leveling, they keep adding different specs so they give you a reason to do all that stuff. Obviously, it's been a game that's been around for a while, so they get it right. World of Warcraft gets it right. Although Worlds of Warcraft is also a money-making thing for some people, so that's some of the popularity. All right, but now what? This extends to this game, Guild Wars 2. This extends to the Division 2. This extends to every single game, RPG game. In an MMO, once you get to your highest level, then you're going to start raiding. And then they have your tier system is based on your gear now. And so then you might have a gear score rating that they do that on. But really, it's a problem for people that set goals for themselves. You set a goal, you've reached a goal, now what do you do? And so when you're younger, you're going to face a lot of anticlimactic feelings. So what's an example of anticlimactic? I want to be an Eagle Scout, and I do all this stuff, and then I'm an Eagle Scout, and then there's a letdown because now what do? I had a purpose before, and I don't have a purpose. So part of your strategy in your life and in your gaming is, what are you going to do next? What are you trying to get out of this game? This I will tell you, I think it's pretty tough to do end game stuff well on different games. What does that mean specifically? On World of Warcraft, you've got to be dedicated to be a raider. On every one of these games, you got to be dedicated to be end game raiding, because you always got to keep your gear. The 1 or 2 points when you're PvPing against someone and you want to remove all the variables, that means your gear's got to be the maximum that it can be, so that when you're playing someone, it's just that whether you stink or not. And usually not going to stink if you get that high. There are some people that will get the highest gear, but they're just not going to do the PvP that well. And so what happens in life? You go to college, you graduate, you get your degree, congratulations, you've just got $100,000 worth of debt, and now what do? And you start at the bottom. Your 4th or 5th year in college, you were the best, and now you go to your new job and you start at the bottom. And after 4 or 5 years, guess what you're going to want? You're going to want to move on, and you're going to want to grind up again. And that may be appropriate in some cases, but I'm going to tell you the perspective when I was vice president and I was looking at resumes coming in. That was the first thing. So we have, I worked at a company that was in the coordinate measuring machine building business. So they made machines that measured, let's just say for like auto parts. I'm going to show my age now. When I was growing up, you'd have to rebuild an engine because it would wear out, because the tolerances were so crappy, the pieces were so crappy that the engine would lose its tolerances, and then you'd have to make it to a new tolerance, and then you put new things in, and blah, 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 blah. They make the engines so well now that they can go 100,000 miles before you have to rebuild them. They might go 200,000 or 300,000 miles, just need oil changes. That's because they can cut the machines more precise. But how do they know if they're cutting precise? They have things called coordinate measuring machines. And at one point I worked for a company called Carl Zeiss, which was the leader as far as how great the machines were. And there's another company, Brown and Sharp, I didn't work for. They had the best software. So those two companies had about 80% of the marketplace when I was in that industry. And that was probably like 13 years ago. So I think it's roughly the same now. So when I was at a smaller one of those companies, we're going to invest a lot of training in you. The pay, just for a service technician, the pay was fantastic, and it had overtime. So you could easily make between $80,000 and $100,000 every year. And if you really wanted to travel and you got proficient, you could make a lot of money, because you're making money, you're getting per diem. Per diem's non-taxable in the U.S. So you're getting your pay, you're getting your overtime, and then you're getting your per diem. It's pretty lucrative. Listen to Roxy. She's like, So before we're going to invest in a service tech, we want to know if they're going to, it's a long time. I had German colleagues that wanted to treat it as apprenticeship. In the United States, we really don't, in non-union jobs, we don't really have apprenticeships. So he was coming from that kind of thing. So he wanted to really train the people very well, as like he was trained in Germany. And I don't blame most people want to train people the way they were trained, because that's what they know. In any case, what we're going to do for those technicians, we were going to put a lot of time and money into them. So you didn't want a person that was going to just jet out of there for $1 more an hour, in 2 or 3 years. You want someone that was going to be there for a while. In turn, you had to give them raises, and you had to make it lucrative for them to stay. But you also have to understand, you're out of college. There's not always going to be this progression of up, 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 up. In video games, in MMOs, the progression usually isn't linear. That is, I have to kill 100 mobs to gain a level each time. So what early game makers did is they would just make the leveling was so hard, they didn't have to worry about that. Might have been static, might have been linear, but you have to get 1,000 kills in each level. You don't want to play that game. So it kind of ramps up. You can make 1 through 10 in about an hour. The character right here is at 76. And what I had forgotten about is you can also level through crafting. So after I get done playing this, I think I'm at level 77. I don't videotape it. I don't record that. I just go and I grind up to 80 just doing crafts, raising my cooking skill. And I'd done that with my tailoring. Getting back to an MMO, the first skill you always make is a tailor or anyone that can make a container that you can hold for your inventory, because you want to increase your inventory, because the time you spend out in the field doing your job is better than having to go back and forth and drop off. You know, you don't know what you're going to need. So in these games, part of it is looting everything. So when you get out of college, you've done it in 4 or 5 years, hopefully. Then you get to a job in 4 or 5 years. Why are they going to... What, you're 27 or 28 now? They're not ready to... Your temperament, you think you're ready. You're still a cauldron of, do I even want to do this? And doing all that. You're going to college to learn how to have a job. Your first job, you're applying not what your study was, the fact that you studied anything. No matter what you take in college, if you get a degree, you're demonstrating that you can stick to something, you can follow directions, you can produce reports. It's not that you can do calculus. Because if you're an engineer at Ford, GM, or Chrysler, when it used to be Chrysler, and you're at a plant, you're retooling a whole plant, you're dealing with people not doing calculus. You're dealing with people, subcontractors, your bosses, your fellow workmates. It's people skills. That's why you're playing MMORPGs. You're trying to fit along in a team. We know how great you are, YouTube. We know you could solo this. But when you get in a group or a guild or you're playing a raid, you're subordinating yourself. I don't know if that's a word. I want to say subhorning, but I'm not positive. You're putting yourself down, subduing yourself so that you will follow orders and do that kind of stuff. That was really important for me in the military. I had no problem doing that. Because quite frankly, I was a dopey kid in high school and I failed my last semester of Spanish. Like I graduated, but really low GPA, like 2.1 or maybe my last year was less than a 2.0. And my overall GPA was horrible. And then in college, I got straight A's. First semester, I got a 3.8. And college was easy for me. Because I was just taking the classes I wanted. I didn't just have to take jerk water classes. So, now what? It's part of goal setting. You're setting a goal, but you also got to have a little bit of goal. When you set a goal, you got to have a little bit that you can stretch to. If you take the maximum that you're supposed to do, that you possibly could do, you don't hit it, you're always going to fail. You never get that satisfaction. If you make a goal too easy, you're always going to hit the goal. It's going to give you a false sense of security. The first time you get in the ring, you're going to get knocked out. Just how it is. It's what you're learning to do in college, right? High school's teaching you the language, the formality, where you're in control of whether you do your homework or not, and there's consequences to that. This was a good little mini quest. So I'm on this bridge, and there's people trying to blow up this bridge, YouTube. How dare you? And you'll see the guy, that's the guy with the X over his head. Right there, and he's carrying a bomb. Now I have people on both sides of the bridge that keep dying, and I gotta res them. I'll check on that side, see if he's okay. So that's what you're doing in high school. You're learning, if you're in high school now, you're learning how to take orders. In college, you're taking orders and you're producing. That's what work's going to be when you first get there. Do this PowerPoint. Go down, take an inventory of these parts. meet with that subcontractor and have the initial meeting. Who's our point of contact? And after 4 years, they're not going to give you a big raise. Don't quit. Because when I saw those people, every 4 years they quit. And let's say they're 32, 36 now. When you're, let's say, in your mid-30s, you're starting to settle down and having a family. So at this point, you should be in a place where you're going to be for a little bit. And hopefully you can explain this when you go on an interview. Let's say you're 28 and you go for a job. Say, yeah, I got it. Well, you might just be getting out of college. So your first job, you better learn everything you can. And hopefully you do good at that job. Now, caveats, YouTube. I mean, this is trying to cram this in really fast. If you're taking a job that's not commensurate with what your degree is, and I'm not saying like I'm an engineer, I'm taking an engineering job. I'm a white collar or blue collar job. If I'm a tradesman, then I should be apprenticing as an electrician or a plumber or whatever. If I'm an engineer, I should be in some job where I'm sitting and doing reports and those kind of things, and maybe going on the floor every once in a while. You might have a job where you're right on the floor overseeing hourly people, and that's okay too, but that's what you're learning how to do. They don't care that you know calculus. I mean, geez, oh Pete. If you want to think of one thing AI is going to do. Let's pause one more second, YouTube. When I was growing up, they did not want us to use calculators in class. It's going to atrophy your brain for math. Whether it does or not, who cares? The point is, people have had an aversion to machines doing their job forever. When I was growing up, I grew up in the Midwest, near Detroit. I grew up in Detroit. And then near Detroit. All those stories of man beating machine and, John Henry, I think I've said that on here before. Right? That those were real, YouTube. So, what's going to differentiate you between an AI? It's not going to be your calculus. It's going to be your people skills. Because even the people programming the AI don't have people skills. They have those engineering skills. Now, what if you're one of those guys that are programming the AI? Then what you need to do, you might not be good with people, but you better crazy Ivan like a MF, YouTube. Crazy Ivan if you're an engineering person. Because that's the only way you're going to really hit home runs, is if you are non-traditional and you're thinking outside the box. And if you don't know what Crazy Ivan is, either read Tom Clancy or listen to it. God forbid that if you can't read, listen to the book, Tom Clancy, The Hunt for Red October, or watch the movie that starred Alec Baldwin, who was the first Jack Ryan. All right, YouTube, now what? We're leveling more, YouTube. Level. Bye. Ronin Kaze out.